Here we go. And just like that, we are here.
All right.
Okay, so it looks so if I have this down right, hey, there's Doug. If I have this down right, everybody should be hearing me. Everyone sounds good. So with that, welcome, compañeros, to another edition of the SQL Data Partners Podcast. I wasn't quite sure we were going to have one, but then I decided about, 15 minutes ago that, yes, we can indeed have one. And Kevin and Eugene, like the rest of America, are going to find out very shortly what we're going to be talking about today.
That's how you know this is going to be a great show.
That's the preparation.
Hey, here's our topic.
I will say I've always wanted to run a SQL Saturday session where there's just a wheel of doom, like a wheel of topics.
Yeah.
And just have seasoned speakers go up and you spin it. And it's you're talking about PowerShell today.
Yeah.
That is fun. SlideShare roulette is also a lot of fun.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So I have seen that done. Normally, the end of day, or they're trying to fill in a gap, right? They'll get the people, get folks into a room or whatever. Now, Andy Leonard, I was fortunate enough to be on their data-driven podcast last week, and he said that when they were first doing Speaker Idle, or maybe it wasn't Idle, but it was something like that. It was the Lightning Talks. That's what it was, Lightning Talks. Alan White. Hey, I actually remembered a name. I'll pat myself on the back for that one. Alan White actually put together his slide deck, and Andy didn't see it beforehand.
Oh, that's funny.
And so he delivered a lightning talk that way. Anyway, so compañeros.
Trust fall.
What's that?
I said that is a trust fall right
That
there.
is a trust fall. That's right.
We can put it in the show notes, but the latest Jackbox party pack, I posted a link, has a game called Talking Points, which I haven't gotten to play it yet, but I think it's similar.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So I want to play it because, I don't know, that's my idea of a good time. Other people don't like the idea of randomized slides that they have to give a presentation on, but...
Yeah, I could see that causing some anxiety, right? But perhaps in a game setting, right? It would be
right. Yeah. I mean, you go to the
straightforward.
website. The example there is how not to be an owl, and it's a picture of an owl. And I mean, I think people can manage it.
Yeah, if you're fairly quick thinking, it's a lot of fun. Also, if you're in chat, it's really fun to judge people as they foul up their presentations.
Yeah. That's funny.
It was fun for everybody.
Okay, so we do have a couple of shout-outs we'd like to get to. So let's see. I'll share the URL later. Okay, so our shout-outs for today's episode, of course, thanks to those who are streaming, right? We appreciate you joining in. If you have questions and whatnot, feel free to join the Peanut Gallery and chat with us here. So Umesh Yadava, Marlon Reyes, Michael Halverson, Hassan Golshari, Devin Leanne Wilson, Enger Abid Habid, Ravi Kumar Goldie. Oh, not to be confused with the Ravi Kumar that we know and love in Maryland, but another Ravi Kumar Goldie. TJ Belt, Russ Johnson, Nahendra Korugalda. I missed an L in there somewhere, so you'll forgive me. Robert Pendo, Andre Du Bois, Alexi C, and Joy Cohn. Now, Joy, I just saw she connected with us on Facebook, and she actually reached out to me. Has a question. I have not forgotten about your question, Joy. Just give me a minute to follow back up, and we will make sure you get answered. So thank you, compañeros, right, for one, your patience as I butcher your names, and 2, for giving us a little love on social media or interacting with us in some other way. Okay, so as hard as it is to believe, a week from tomorrow is our SQL Trail event. And the only one that I guess maybe I shouldn't say this. The only speaker I'm 100% sure about is Kevin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I am definitely a speaker.
The rest of them, I'm like, okay, we're gonna, I guess no news is good news, right? Unless I hear otherwise,
Yeah.
it's all fine. So I will let you in on a little. Well, I don't know if secret is the right word, right? But we are trying to change things up a little bit, and Eugene, Mr. Zoom fatigue himself, is. I shouldn't say prompted it, but it definitely was part of our decision process. So we are actually going to be utilizing something called AirMeet, or it's a website or a web called AirMeet. Have you guys heard of that at all?
Just in the email that you sent that I need to respond to.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, no.
Yeah, so it is again, so the conferencing software, right? That you're seeing. One of the cool things about it is that it has a lobby, and in that lobby there are tables, and they have a maximum, I believe it's 8 people that you can have at a table. Actually, I think that's a customization that we can make, so we might actually decrease that just slightly. But you can, so during the session, your camera's off. You can enjoy the session. There's chat, right, if you want to interact. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. We can actually bring somebody on stage where they can turn on their camera, ask their question, interact, right, and then they can go back. So during the session, there's no pressure, right, to have the camera on and have that interaction, right? You can walk around. You can walk around and get lunch or whatever it is you need to do. But then for our networking pieces, you can actually grab a table, right, jump on. We'll have our speakers there, and it will enable us to do a little socializing. So I'm hoping that is then helpful. It gives us a way to connect, right? But also provides a contrast between, right, just having to decide, do I always have to be on or not? So we're going to try it, right? I'm very interested to see how folks, react to it, if they like it. I should say that so far in the small testing that we've done, it's been well received. So, but admittedly, most of those people may have a bias as well. So, so that'll be next Thursday. We'll be doing that. Well, March 18th. So there is still time to register. And I guess I'll let you know another little tidbit. So we weren't quite sure what to do about shirts, right? So in my mind, right, shirts are, well, we haven't done shirts for every single trail. For most of them we have. And so we have shirts this year, which, since I have 2 of my speakers here, I can let you in on. If folks ask questions or if, there's engagement and you want to offer them a shirt, I have shirts we can send people. So there you go. That option.
If you don't want to engage, just send me $10 and I'll get you a shirt.
or that. Oh man.
PayPal and Venmo accepted.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I hadn't thought about the subculture of t-shirt, acquiring. Anyway. Okay, so for today, compañeros, what I thought we could do is touch base on, and there are more than we can get to, and admittedly I didn't read all of them, but I thought this might be a good opportunity for us to talk about. So an Ignite recap. I know last week we talked a little bit about the Azure Premium or Azure Premium, Power BI Premium.
Yeah. Get it right.
Well, so I got Alan White's name right, and so so as far as names, like the rest of the show, I'm done for, right? And so I haven't asked you So you weren't you didn't know ahead of time, but so I have a couple of things pulled up that at least from an ideas perspective we can jump on. But I guess my question is what, if anything, jumped out at you gentlemen from last week's Ignite conference and things that we think our compañeros might be interested in?
I definitely saw a lot of Ignite sessions for sure.
Yeah, I did not end up attending. I've heard some recaps, but
yeah. So I saw 0 sessions as well, but I did.
This is a great topic, Carlos.
Yeah.
Well, hey, wait. I don't have to go to the sessions. I just care about the announcements, right? That's all. That's what I'm looking at, right? So the first one, I guess, having jumping into that, right? Then it's been available. I don't know that it's directly relate. I mean, it doesn't necessarily directly relate to data folks. However, where I'm going is the Azure Arc, right? So Azure Arc is coming, and it's, the way I understand it, is ultimately the ability for you to be able to manage your environments. Both your on-premise and your Azure infrastructure, as you try to leverage cloud technologies, but you have all this stuff internally that you need to do. So I think a lot of it, I think it leans a little bit more on the security side, right? But nope, Kevin's shaking his head no. But
no, I'll let you finish, and then I'll correct you.
Yeah.
All right, Kanye.
But I think we will then interface with it because it is that administrative layer, that connecting layer that we're going to get wrapped up in at some point, I would imagine, assuming you're using cloud stuff, right?
Yeah. So the goal of Azure Arc is to provide you are correct, management interface for companies.
Yep.
Basically, to give you that Azure billing and management feel. It's not just on premises and Azure, it's also any other cloud provider as well. As of today, I know that they have in their current version Azure Kubernetes service. So essentially, you put something into a Kubernetes, you build out your Kubernetes cluster, you deploy out containers into Kubernetes, and wherever those containers are located, whichever cloud they're on, or whether they're on premises, you will be able to manage operations within Azure Arc across all of these different platforms. They're in preview for Azure SQL Managed Instances and Azure Postgres Hyperscale. Those might be GA. They have been in preview. It's been on their website, so I'm not giving out any secret information.
Sure.
But what you can get from this notion is that Microsoft is definitely pushing this idea of, well, we have these services that you can run in Azure, but there are customers running in AWS. Well, you can still pay us to run stuff in AWS. We'll happily allow you to do that. And you can think of that as mixed management scenario, or where I'm running a software as a service product and I want to be able to bill by customer, bill by client. And the Azure billing portal is pretty good about that. I think it's better than what AWS has readily available. AWS has a lot of information, but getting to that information can be a challenge.
Sure.
When you want to get down to the detailed levels, especially because there's no core concept of a resource group. So you're tagging, you can get this by tagging, but if you have tagged resources that are multi-client, it gets harder to analyze.
Right.
In any event, getting that management and billing interface, that is the core of what Azure Arc is, and also is something that I'll be talking about next week at SQL Trail.
Hey,
Nice.
there we go. Right? So a little primer. See?
But what I won't admit next week is every time somebody talks about Azure Arc, my brain actively turns off. So for the first probably 9 months that I'd heard about Azure Arc. Like as soon as they started talking about it, like, nope, don't care. I have since convinced myself to care because I think it is interesting enough.
Sure.
But from, if you're a data platform specialist, you are probably not going to do much inside Azure Arc. That is something that will be more of an operations and management type of experience.
Yeah.
So that was part of why I had difficulty forcing myself to care.
Yeah, and that's fair enough, right? So depending on just, I think how you get grouped or what your maybe admin roles are, right? It may or may not touch you. I guess I do feel like a lot of our compañeros who are, they're taking on more responsibilities, right? And so I could see some of that moving into the to the admin layer. So they may have more interactions with it. So. And so now that Kevin actually, his brain doesn't necessarily turn off when he hears it, compañeros, and we get a little bit more. So did it actually release it into GA? That's what I couldn't quite get. I didn't know if I can get the words out. I wasn't quite sure if they were just adding additional features or if they actually were saying, "Hey, this is now GA."
Right. So. Data services are not GA.
Okay, there we go.
Kubernetes, Azure Arc Kubernetes is in GA.
Got you.
So if you have that Kubernetes cluster, you can attach that Kubernetes cluster and then work with it. And they have pricing, they have the functionality that's currently available, but that's where they currently are GA.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so another one that may affect us a little bit more is the idea of Windows, Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Managed Instances now have maintenance windows, and that's in preview, right? So this is going to give us the ability to I think it's more so just like your maintenance window, right? You can pause alerting, right? Do some of the things you need to do. Again, there are limitations. We'll see, but it's in preview, and so we'll probably circle back to that one when it becomes GA, right? Talk a little bit more about it. Synapse got a little bit more love, which I think was to be expected. They're still trying to put that out. And then there was quite a few things in the AI space, right? That I'm not sure that's going to hit our group, but I suppose because ultimately it is doing AI over data, right? That's why it got grouped into some of the data pieces there.
In the Microsoft world, it's data and AI.
Okay, so that's fair, right?
And at Ignite, they were combined together as sessions. They're combined together as ideas quite often.
Right. Which is fair, right? I mean, in a sense, right? You have to feed those models data, right, to for them to process. So.
Well, it's funny because I would not be surprised if a lot of it's driven by the org chart at Microsoft. Like I haven't been keeping up with it lately, but I know back in the day, like if you search for it, there's this comic from like 10 years ago, 15 years ago of the different org charts of the different companies and stuff. And the one from Microsoft was a normal org chart, but they're all just pointing guns at each other, right? Like some sort of Western, like Mexican standoff kind of thing, or whatever the proper term is for that. And I know it's gotten better, but I remember past is dead, so I'm probably not going to get sued for breach of NDA, right?
Yeah.
But I remember that the difference between SQL Server and all that operational stuff and business intelligence was particularly meaningful because of the fact that it was two different suborgs within Microsoft.
Sure.
And they did their whole business analyst conference and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a big deal that they had started sending us, business intelligence sessions again, because there was a period of time where it was like, we're doing our own thing. So it could be that some of that's driven more by the org chart than the actual technology, right?
That's fair. Yep. That is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So there were, I guess the other piece is, let's see. So Azure Migrate has a few new features, and admittedly, when it wasn't obvious to me where the lines were between what was already there and what was new. So I don't have those necessarily to call out. But when I get a handle on those better, I will put something in the show notes about that. And then the last one, again, I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but so from the Power BI perspective, have you given any thought to your examples, Eugene? Do you have better analogies for us this week, or are we still thinking on analogies, how to apply the Power BI Premium
or Power BI Premium?
Okay.
Plus.
Yeah.
No, I'm probably gonna stick with my crappy analogy and be like, it's a first class bus and you get like hot towels and fancy food and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. The whole thing is still very weird, because really, what it is it's user-based licensing, and you're just paying an extra for some of the premium features, right? So I feel like what I'm going to end up with, like when I blog about it, is just this weird Venn diagram chart or something going on. But I think it's going to take a little bit longer to bake some beautiful insight, unfortunately. Maybe SQL Trail, who knows? But
hey, there we go. Hey, it could be, right? Yeah. We're going to have lots of little goodies there at SQL Trail. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, I thought, those were perhaps a fairly short list, right? But some of the pieces from the, from Ignite announcements that, unless, I guess, Eugene, do you have another one you wanted to add?
Yeah, so there's two things over on the Power Platform side of things, right?
That's fair, and I saw a lot more notices over there, but I was like, nope, we'll go for it.
Yeah, Power Automate Desktop being free and widely available seems interesting, but the other thing that I'm cautiously optimistic about is they're making an open source programming language called Microsoft Power FX.
Yes, I saw this, and admittedly now again I don't know all the details, but I was just like,
it feels like VBA for the web. That's what it feels like.
How many languages do we need here? Yeah.
Well, okay, so if they can consolidate the languages used across the Power Platform, then this is a win, right? It sounds like, from reading at it, they're taking what's used for Power Apps and trying to kind of broaden that a bit. And if that ends up being the case, and you only have to learn like one language for most of the Power Platform stuff, I see that as a win.
Sure.
But, it's hard for me to see like this becoming a more broadly used language or used. They're open sourcing it, which is cool, but I'd be hard pressed to bet money that like some third party is going to be like, this is what we need for a programming language, and implement it or implement support for it. So we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic. I have yet to figure out what the right point is for me to try to dip my toes into the rest of the Power Platform. I know that they try to bundle it all together, the certs tie it all together. But I just haven't had a point yet where I've needed to do it. I know that you had a customer project where you did a Power App. But yeah, it's hard for me to figure out, is it worth my time to dive into the rest of the Power Platform as of yet?
Yeah, and I think, again, so as crazy as it sounds, as organizations continue the not digitalization, but their data modernization, right? Processes. I think there are a lot of older technologies out there that are still, sitting around, and then they want to be able to weaponize them or mobile, put them on a mobile phone, right? And I think that's where all of a sudden, then like a Power Apps does make a lot of sense, is that you can kind of skip to the end, and
it's amazing for what it is, because like sometimes you just want to be able to slap like a UI in front of a SQL table.
Yeah, that's right.
And for that, it's awesome. You're not spending $60,000 to farm out Android development or iOS development or both.
Right.
You're like, okay, here's how I want to work. I need to learn a little bit of formula language, and there we go. So yeah, for what it is, it's awesome. It's just, I think I'm still trying to figure out, like, as a professional, how often those skill sets are going to overlap.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll see about this Power FX. Right now it feels like VBA for the internet, or for the cloud. So we'll see.
Sure. Okay. Now there was some streaming stuff in there as well. I guess that I bring up. Azure Stream Analytics now supports single tenant dedicated clusters. So I guess that they're trying to get rid of yeah. Now, I was going to be a little more, I don't know, forgiving and be like, hey, they're trying to help with the noisy neighbor problem, right? With the burstiness. But Kevin sees that a little bit like,
I don't know. When I hear dedicated, I hear like price tag, right? Yeah. And that's not a bad thing, but like, I'll give you an example that's related. So sure. Azure Event Hubs, it has 3 tiers. So there's basic, where you get one consumer group, so you can only have one logical application reading from it at any time. It gives you, I think you can have messages that are up to like 1/4 of a megabyte. You can have up to 24 hours of event storage or message storage. There's standard, which ups that to 20 consumer groups, 7 days. And then there's dedicated, which is 90 days of data, right? But you're paying like $5,000 a month, or it's at least 4 figures. I know that.
Wow.
It's a lot, right?
Sure.
So yeah, anytime I hear the word dedicated, I assume we're starting at 4 figures per month and working our way up.
Got you.
Usually, yeah. I mean, that's a fair one. There's also premium in the Event Hubs tiers.
Oh, okay.
And basically, standard gives you something, I think it's like 250,000 messages per minute or per hour, some number per unit.
Yeah.
And
not humongous, but not small either, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah, and you can get 10 units of standard and multiply that linearly.
Right.
Premium is some multiplier on top of standard, where it'll let you go out to, I have 50 million messages per day or 50 million messages per hour or whatever that need to be processed. And then there's dedicated, like Eugene said, which is you get your own servers.
Right.
You pay for your own servers.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll see. But I expect the use case there to be a bit niche, right?
Sure. Yeah, or you quickly, I guess scale up. I mean, at some point, I guess the hubs, I don't know, I suppose it would be hard. It's all about infrastructure, right? Do you want to put in the infrastructure to take on all that responsibility, right? Or do you want somebody else to manage it? I suppose for some organizations, the answer obviously is we'd like somebody else to manage it.
Right.
So, okay. Well, those are some of the ones that I, took a peek at. I wouldn't say that there was a ton, right, geared towards us per se. But interesting still, nonetheless.
There were a few. Like Azure Synapse Pathway. I know we hit Synapse in about 5 seconds.
Yeah, we kind of glossed over that because I'm like, it's... Anyway, go for it.
There actually is some, if you look at kind of the Kremlinology around what's announced in Synapse Pathway, for people who don't know, Azure Synapse Analytics took the guts of Azure SQL Data Warehouse, that MPP solution, pulled that in, called it dedicated SQL pools, introduced serverless SQL pools, which are essentially you get access to external tables and have that serverless style scale out that you have with Azure SQL Database Serverless. And then you have Spark pools, which are using the open source version of Spark, I think 2.4 still, a bit behind Databricks in quality there. But the gist of it is it's supposed to be this unified platform where you get massive parallel processing plus Spark plus spelunking style one-off serverless searches within your data. And for the dedicated SQL pool side, they introduced this pathway where you can retrieve data from 3 systems. So system number 1 is from an on-premises SQL server. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and that's fairly straightforward, especially if you've already designed a warehouse style solution that has proper facts and dimensions. You can bring that in, and what it's supposed to do is take your data structure and also take your code and rewrite it in ways that are friendly for dedicated SQL pools. So if you have stored procedures, translate those. Also works for IBM Netezza, which also works for Snowflake.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like...
Well, Microsoft has been getting killed by Snowflake in the analytics space, in that warehousing space, because Snowflake will come in and say, we will automatically tune all of your queries. You don't even have to worry about it. Just give us data. We will automatically tune your queries. And they come in at a really, really low price. But then you find out that the cost of automating your queries means that the price ends up getting a lot higher than people realize, to the point where you go back and say, well, shoot, Redshift and Azure Synapse Analytics actually are cheaper now than Snowflake because you told me it was going to be X, and now it's, not exaggerating, 10 or 20 times that amount.
Wow.
And so that, I think, is the major play with Pathway, that take this data from Snowflake, now that you've seen the sticker shock, and bring it into Azure Synapse Analytics, where we can give you reserved instance pricing, where you have price certainty.
That does make a difference for sure.
Yeah, that is the play, and I think they added Netezza. I see the set I'm looking at right now includes other like Redshift and Google BigQuery.
Yeah,
and
Hive-based Hadoop, yeah.
I didn't know if Teradata, BigQuery, and Redshift are actually supported right now. If they are, okay.
Yeah, it
Netezza looks less like a red herring.
It looks like it's on the roadmap. It looks like it's not quite there. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I heard the 3 names, it's like, okay, SQL Server, obviously you're gunning for Snowflake. Netezza, you bring that in so that, no, we're not gunning for Snowflake. This is a general purpose solution. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see them in that space, and also competing heavily with Teradata, where they have some big contracts.
Oh yeah.
So as far as money goes, it's a smart decision, and especially if the migration process is anywhere near at least adequate in terms of efficiency. If it's good in terms of efficiency, then that's actually a really solid product.
Gotcha.
Dedicated SQL pool pricing has gone down a lot since the days of Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Back when you looked at it and said, oh, this is way too expensive. Now it's expensive. It might be too expensive, but it's not way too expensive.
Right. But it's approachable, right? It's tolerable, right, for folks, right? Whereas before...
Yeah, I mean, you get to the point where I can have a reasonable production solution for a reasonable data set, where reasonable is measured in 2 to 3 digit terabytes. You could go higher, but you know, say 100 to 500 terabytes of data laid out in a fairly approachable manner. I don't know. You're probably going at about $30,000 to $40,000 per month, which sounds like a lot, but when you have analytics that you want to run very consistently off of multi-hundred terabytes of data, you're going to pay money somewhere.
Sure. There's not a whole lot of options, right? The cheap options are somewhat limited, right?
Yeah. The cheap options are basically you look at a very tiny subset of that data and pretend the rest doesn't exist.
Right. Sure.
So that was, I think, a pretty big one. I believe that we have talked about Azure Purview on SQL Data Partners.
Yeah. So remind us, refresh our memory here, Kevin.
So Purview is Azure Data Catalog Gen 2.
Yeah.
Basically, it's
That's right.
metadata management, it's data governance in a way that is hopefully a lot better than what we saw with Azure Data Catalog.
Right.
Azure Data Catalog was an interesting start that just never got a finish.
Sure.
It was like a Fox sci-fi show. They killed it after one season. Also, they aired the episodes out of order.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Best part is, you don't know which show I'm talking about because they all did that.
They all did that. Okay. I assumed you were talking about Firefly, which I understand they're going to reboot, but...
Space Above and Beyond was my first example there.
Okay.
Firefly was just example number 2.
Oh boy.
But anyhow, data classification, data management, data governance. These are topics that make a lot of sense in larger organizations and are really difficult to do.
They're so difficult.
With any products today.
No, that's right.
So...
That was the comment I think I remember. Yeah, last time we talked about this, it was like, well, we can bring the tooling, right? But you got to bring the process, right? You got to bring the people, to the tooling because it's only as good as the people willing to execute it.
Yeah, and Purview's trying to improve that by scanning data sets, scanning the databases, trying to link things together, build out lineage of where data points go as you start in flat files someplace to relational databases to warehouses to Power BI to Excel reports that people have generated. That's the ideal, that you could tie those together and understand what processes have been done to the data, where that data has gone through in order to get to that Excel spreadsheet.
And then it does give you some the governance pieces there as well. So if you decide that, hey, right, this is my, this is what I want my addresses or whatever to look like, that I can.
On the way.
It's on the way.
I think it's not. Well, I can say, I don't believe it's there today.
Gotcha.
I don't think that control is there. There is sensitivity, so you can label data as classified or sensitive, and there is that. Right now, I think they're focusing on scanning the data, understanding where it is and what it looks like.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I think if they can kind of marry the two, then right at that point, I think that will be a little bit more compelling. Just some of the conversations. Admittedly, when I hear data governance and people are like, "Yeah, we're going to start this data governance project," I'm like, "Where's the door? Like, how quickly can I get out of this meeting?" Right?
Yeah. Especially if you take it seriously. If you do pretend data governance, let's look at these SQL servers. Cool. What about the rest of your data? Let's look at these SQL servers. We'll start with this data. It's the drunk looking for the keys in the spotlight. It's where the light is. I know where my SQL servers are. I don't know where all the rest of the stuff is.
Yeah.
Sure. That's fair. So
Cosmos DB got some updates as well. So Azure Synapse Link is actually pretty cool. The idea here is you can feed messages into Cosmos DB and think of that as sort of the relational side. And the analytics side allows you to query this data in bulk from Spark Pool in Azure Synapse Analytics. So I can get changes. Maybe I track events and I can get changes on those events, roll up those changes, and be able to process that data. So it gives you the OLAP side where Cosmos DB is generally focused on the OLTP side.
Got you. Okay.
And they're looking at Mongo 4 server support. So basically having compatibility with the Mongo 4 API, which makes sense because that API has been out for a long time. So it's good for them to be able to support that API for their Mongo-based customers. And cognitive search got some updates. That is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say some of that seemed like a little bit of a reach, right? I mean, even the Cognos. I mean, I knew we have Cognos or not Cognos. I'm looking right at it, Cosmos. So I guess I should say my limited experience, I'm not seeing a whole lot of our folks, right? Deploying Cosmos just yet.
Yeah. No, that I agree with. I'm not the biggest fan of Cosmos DB myself. It's, I think, like several other services for Azure, it has improved, especially in cost. The fact that you can get a 400 RU per second free tier Cosmos DB collection is a really good thing. I can see the cases where you would want to use Cosmos DB, but my bias is going to lean heavily toward relational databases to begin with. However, there are some things like if you want to do event processing systems, you want to use a CQRS style model for command and control, that lends itself really well to using Cosmos DB. But you're going to be more on the application side at that point.
No, that's right. That was my thinking as well.
Yeah, and with cognitive search, basically Elasticsearch plus artificial intelligence capabilities. Because like being able to do semantic search is kind of interesting, where I may type in one term, but really I meant something slightly different, or I wanted some variation on it, and to be able to search for documents based on that. Now, the downside is it uses Bing's solution, so you'll never find your documents.
Ouch.
Mm.
And that's why Microsoft doesn't pay me.
Well, on that note,
Yeah, really.
yeah, awesome. I don't know. So now, having said that, looking at Ignite, and like I said, I did not actually participate in any of the episodes, but you're looking for the announcements. So now that they're, everybody's virtual, right, and we're not messing, but we're changing our traditional calendars, right? What's the? Are you aware of the next? I don't know. What's the next Microsoft conference that we should be aware of? Off the top of your heads?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean they've got a couple of them, but I don't know if the dates have been officially announced.
Oh, okay, so they're still kind of playing it by ear a little bit. Yes, with no venue to book and whatnot, right? It makes they don't have to put it quite so far in advance.
They can be a lot more fast and loose with dates.
Yeah. So, okay, very good. I guess last thoughts. As long as it has to do with the Cosmos, Redis, or
we didn't even talk about Redis today. We can talk about how Redis falls over.
I was going to say it's on the list, and I was like, nope, not going to do that one. Okay, and as always, compañeros, you can use the hashtag AskSDPP, SQL Data Partners Podcast. We'd love to get your feedback and questions. And if you want to reach out to us, you can do so. Eugene.
You can find me on Twitter at SQLgene, and I blog SQLgene.com.
Mr. Kevin.
My info was available, but Azure Purview marked it as sensitive, so it's no longer exportable to Excel.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense to me. And compañeros, you can reach out to me. I am at SQLDataPartners.com. And you can find me at LinkedIn. I'm at Carlos L. Chacon. Thanks again for tuning in to today's episode, and we'll see you on the SQL Trail. Bye, y'all.
SQL Data Partners.